I have always been a person that has been able to control my lust. However, I gotta admit, there have been some times whenever I start to lose my track and I start to give in to lust, and we all know what happens then. You start feeling regret, you start to feel shame, you start thinking that you're a lot worse than what you actually are. You start to make excuses and just settle for mediocrity. And then, worst comes to worst, you will go into this downward spiral of being controlled and have all of your satisfaction filled by lust, which is not a good thing because lust is a very, very powerful thing. Lust sucks. Lust is something that we all hate to do, that we all hate to give in, that we all try to battle, but then we all know that eventually we will give in to it. There was a time about 3 months ago whenever I was 3 months clean of lust. No masturbation, no hookups, no texting anybody just to fill the void. None of that. It was just me and my spirits, my values, my moral compass, and using that energy that I gained to catapult me into doing some good things. In this video, I'll be talking about a few things that I do or I've done to overcome lust. Number 1, go outside more. Now, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure this out. One, we all know that lust happens whenever we're alone, but more importantly, there are so many benefits of going outside. First of all, you're touching grass, which is, that's an accomplishment itself right there. But in all seriousness, going outside boosts your vitamin D levels, which is linked to a better mood and emotional regulation. We all know that people with higher vitamin D tend to feel happier and less impulsive. Even if it's a short walk outside, it can really, really help reset your mind. Now with this, I've been very, very fortunate to be outside for most of my day. Whenever I work at my retail, there's a good amount of time that I spent outside, and that definitely is what helped me overcome my lust. And you start to feel the difference. Truly, you start to feel the difference. Number 2, exercise regularly. Now, we all know that physical activity literally releases the same dopamine and serotonin, the same chemicals that spike during lust. Exercising releases the exact same chemicals that you do whenever you give into lust. It also helps reduce stress and improves self-control over time. This one is very obvious. It is no secret that the people who are at the gym every day, the ones that are progressing their body, the ones that are breaking down their body, physically straining their body out, they're typically happier. It's common sense. It's something that we all know, that we all should be doing. It's the same thing with walking outside. Going out there, touching grass, being active in general is what's very, very powerful in terms of overcoming lust. Number 3, which is something I used to do a lot more, which I'm slowly starting to get back into, is meditate daily. Meditating teaches you how to observe things without reacting. When lust pops up, meditation helps you pause and it lets the feeling subside, and it prevents you from giving into that. It's the same thing that boosts your brain cognitivity whenever you're feeling some sort of way. It helps you manage your stress, it helps you manage your emotions. And the way I used to meditate is I would have a journal. Every night I would write my thoughts in that journal. Whether it was how I was feeling, what went on that day, finding some way to relieve that emotion is good. There have been times whenever I wrote in that journal that I was feeling really, really lustful, and I did not give into it. And usually whenever I read back into that, I am so much more prouder of myself because I was able to physically write it out rather than actually give into it. Another way that I used meditation to overcome this was reading the Bible. I know that there are not many people that are religious nowadays, and that's okay. But to me, what really, really set it apart was reading the Bible. This was around the time that I doubled down on the Bible whenever things were going bad, but I had no other choice but to go to the Bible. And it really, really catapulted me to a different level where I didn't have to worry about that, where whenever I felt like I had some sort of power, instead of going, to my mattress, I would go to the gym. I would walk outside. I would walk around campus. I would drive. I would do something. I would go somewhere. I would read. Anything that took my mind off of that. That's what I use that power and energy for. Okay, next one up. We have build deeper relationships. This one to me was very, very special because this is what actually has gotten me closer to the people that I love. So we all know that lust often fills a gap where connection is missing. That's why we do it. Where we want intimacy, where we want bonds, and emotional cravings. We all know that's what it fills. It fills that void. But if you go out and build emotional connections with people that you care about and hang around them a lot more, it becomes a lot easier to have self-control because you're getting that social activity. You're receiving that sort of attention that you've been kind of craving where yes, it's not necessarily an intimate emotion that you're feeling, but it's covering for a lot of the social grounds that you feel like you're missing. And that's what building deeper relationships is for. That's the main purpose. It's a healthy way of becoming a normal human being. And we all know that strong social ties reduce stress, and it also blocks the impulsive behavior that you have whenever you want to do things like that. What I do is I try to always be around people. I'm literally around people about 90% of the day, and that to me is what's also been a very, very strong part in resisting those temptations because a lot of that satisfaction was filled through people and healthy relationships. Next one up, we have set personal goals. I think that whenever we all have something to strive for and we start seeing little and little progression towards something, we start to really, really focus on that goal, on that set goal. Now, it doesn't have to be necessarily big goals, right? These can be smaller things, right? So it could be a change of habits, right? A change of daily activity, right? So, one small goal that I try to incorporate is to make my bed every morning whenever I wake up. Or it can be something even simpler where the first thing you do whenever you get up, you go outside and go for a walk. Or it can be the first thing you do whenever you wake up is not check your phone. That's something that I've been doing a lot more. Instead of waking up and checking my phone, I don't even check the time, like in all honesty, unless I'm setting an alarm in the morning. I go out and I brush my teeth. That's the first thing I do, brush my teeth and wake myself up with cold water. Sometimes warm, I won't lie. Sometimes it has been warm, but I try to set personal goals that are not too far outstretched and that I know I can actually accomplish. Like I said, it doesn't have to be something massive. It can be baby steps, right? As long as you're progressing towards something better and bettering yourself, that can be what really, really sets you forward and sets you apart from your old self. The last one I'm going to be going over with is put that phone down. This one I'm sure is very, very obvious. Nowadays, there's so much social media bias that the algorithm feeds us, and it is not healthy. For instance, we all seen those videos, that website is literally on your phone, or unless you watch it on a computer and you're a dangerous man or woman, whichever way you roll. But we all know that scrolling through our phone, whether that's TikTok or Instagram or YouTube, it floods your receptors. It overstimulates your brain, especially sexual imagery. And if you think about it, all you're doing is scrolling and scrolling and scrolling and reducing your attention span. And the prefrontal cortex is that part of the brain that handles self-control and decision making. And like I said, whenever I say it desensitizes your brain, it literally is preventing you from having self-control over your feelings. Not only that, but it disconnects you from the actual world. We all know that it can distract you whenever you feel lonely, stressed, or even bored. And for some people, it's an escape route. I don't think it's the best thing you can do for your brain. If we're all being honest with ourselves, these social media companies, all they want to do is push that algorithm to keep you on that app and keep you engaged. This is what creates a feedback loop. And the more you pause or the more you click and the more you scroll, um, it allows those companies to grow. And they don't care about you. They truly do not care. You are just a number. And that's why, nowadays my screen time is about, no more than like 6 hours on a bad week. It's usually about 4 hours. And then again, that's a lot. And that's something that I try to do and that's something that I'm trying to be better at, to pick up something else instead of picking up that phone. Whether that's a book or whether that is something meaningful where I don't have to be in front of a screen. That really helps out a lot. But yeah, we all know that lust triggers a dopamine spike, especially whenever we pair it with visual stimulation. It's bad enough to give into lust, but then again, you're boosting it whenever you're watching that website that we all know of, and over time, it just hooks you because, you repeat to the same high exposure of dopamine, and it desensitizes your brain. That's why I always try to do things that make me socialize with more people and allows me to use my brain a lot more, because once you start to then desensitize your brain, the only feeling that you feel, the only rewards and cravings that you have are the ones that you've experienced beforehand. You have to replace these dopamine habits with healthier ones. So, like I said, exercising, walking, deep work, meaningful relationships, they also trigger dopamine, but in ways that it allows you to build resistance and not necessarily an addiction. And there are many ways. It just doesn't have to be things that I list out. So for instance, you can read. Reading is something that is not digital, and I tend to find out that the more I'm on my phone, the more I tend to want to have a dopamine, but visually. But the bottom line is that we all know that lust is bad, and my mission statement for this channel is to help people that are suffering. If I can make someone's day and help out someone, that is what my mission statement is. Being there for people. That is what I want to do. I want to be able to help people. And if this helps you, I would really appreciate if you guys could like the video and push this video into the algorithm so that I can help out more people. And I really hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.